What happened to NCIS after its explosive debut in 2003? The show once pulled us into a world of razor-sharp agents and shocking crimes. But behind the scenes, its own cast faced twists just as brutal. Careers collapsed overnight, illness struck without warning, and some met tragic, unforgettable ends. Today, in 2025, we look back, not just to remember them, but to honor the legacy they fought so hard to leave behind. Mark Harmon as Leroy Jethro Gibbs. Mark Harmon played Leroy Jethro Gibbs, the quiet but commanding investigator in NCIS 2003, when he was 52 years old. The character's steady leadership and controlled intensity made him the emotional compass of the team. However, the story of his own life has to be traced back to where the role truly began. Born on September 2, 1951 in Burbank, California, he was the youngest child in his house. His father, Tom Harmon, was a national sports hero. His mother, Elise Knox, carried Hollywood lineage. Even as a boy, he grew up surrounded by adults who had already made their mark, and that environment shaped him with a mixture of pride and pressure. School, sports, and discipline filled his days until football carried him to UCLA, where he became starting quarterback and earned national recognition long before he ever set foot on a soundstage. That foundation of rigid structure slowly evolved into the resilience that defined his adult life. Years later, during the peak of his acting career, a serious on-set accident left him with a lingering back injury that would follow him for decades. The pain became something he lived with quietly, just as he lived with the sorrow of losing his sister Kristen to addiction. These private battles sat beneath the surface, while the public knew him only as the controlled figure they saw on television. Today, Mark Harmon is 74 years old. He no longer appears as Gibbs, but remains a guiding force behind NCIS as a producer, stepping in selectively when the story calls for him. His net worth, estimated around $100 million, reflects a career built on endurance rather than glamour. David McCallum as Donald "Ducky" Mallard. David McCallum played Donald "Ducky" Mallard, the thoughtful, detail-driven medical examiner in NCIS 2003, when he was 70 years old. The kindness and curiosity he brought to the character came from a life marked by both artistry and upheaval. Before audiences ever heard Ducky's calm explanations, McCallum had already lived through stories far more complex than anything the show could script. He was born on September 19, 1933, in Glasgow, Scotland, to musicians whose careers took the family to London when he was still very young. That move, however, was followed almost immediately by the chaos of World War II, forcing him and his mother to return to Scotland for safety. Childhood for him was not a steady picture. It was movement, separation, and the constant awareness that the world could shift without warning. During these uncertain years, he turned toward performance, lending his voice to BBC Radio, and discovering a confidence that daily life didn't always grant him. As he grew older, new responsibilities reshaped him again. Service in the British Army instilled a discipline that stayed with him throughout his acting career, while formal training at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art opened doors to roles that would eventually define him. But time carried its own cost. Heart complications emerged gradually, the kind that rarely announce themselves until they begin limiting the simplest moments. Even as he continued working on NCIS, those quiet ailments followed him. Finally, David McCallum passed away on September 25, 2023, at 90 years old, from natural causes at New York Presbyterian Hospital. His death, occurring on the same day as NCIS's 20th anniversary marathon, felt like an unintended farewell woven into television history. Leaving behind an estate of roughly $10 million, he also left a legacy built over 7 decades. Sean Murray as Timothy McGee. Sean Murray played Timothy McGee, the quietly brilliant cyber specialist in NCIS 2003, when he was 25 years old. His character's mix of intelligence, loyalty, and nervous determination made him the heart of the team's more human moments. And the path that led him into that role began far earlier than most viewers ever realized. Born on November 15, 1977, at the Bethesda Navy Hospital in Maryland, this place reflected the rhythm of the life awaiting him. His father served more than 30 years in the U.S. Navy, and because of that, childhood meant constant relocation. Military bases in Australia, Singapore, London, and across the United States. The pattern of packing, leaving, and starting over shaped him in ways that later made McGee's quiet resilience feel real. When his parents divorced, he moved with his mother to Los Angeles. That change opened the door to acting, but it came with its own weight. Early roles in Hocus Pocus and Jag gave him recognition, yet he often found himself compared to his brother Chad W. Murray, already established behind the camera. Through those years, he faced criticism over his appearance, especially when dramatic weight loss led to rumors about addiction. Rumors that ignored the truth that he was simply trying to repair his health. The stress of balancing career pressure with a growing family added another strain, eventually contributing to the separation from his wife, Carrie James, after nearly 20 years together. In 2025, Sean Murray is 47 years old and remains a central presence on NCIS, carrying the character of McGee into a new era of the series. Off-screen, he adjusts to single life, focuses on co-parenting his two children, and continues to work steadily. His net worth of roughly $8 million reflects a career built not on spectacle, but on persistence. Pauley Perrette as Abby Sciuto. Pauley Perrette played Abby Sciuto, the energetic Gothic-styled forensic scientist in NCIS 2003, when she was 34 years old. Abby's mix of brilliance, innocence, and emotional warmth made her one of the show's most beloved characters. Yet behind that cheerful exterior lay a personal history far more turbulent than fans ever imagined. Pauley Perrette was born on March 27, 1969, in New Orleans, Louisiana, and spent her childhood moving through Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, the Carolinas, New York, and California. Those constant relocations gave her a restless curiosity and an early fascination with crime, science, and the strange corners of human behavior. Money was scarce, so she worked any job she could find, bartending in underground clubs, wearing sandwich board ads on roller skates, cooking on dinner cruise boats, holding on to the hope that education would lift her into something steadier. Criminal justice studies at Valdosta State University and John Jay College gave her direction, even as life around her remained unpredictable. The instability followed her into adulthood. Her marriage to Coyote Shivers collapsed in accusations of abuse and restraining orders that left deep emotional wounds. Later, a near-fatal allergic reaction to black hair dye in 2014 and a stroke in 2021 reminded her how fragile her health had become. On the NCIS set, escalating tensions and her claim of being physically assaulted created a storm that eventually drove her to leave the show entirely. The departure ended one of television's most iconic roles. Now, Pauley Perrette is 56 years old, retired from acting, and focused on healing after decades of turmoil. She remains active in charitable work, especially civil rights and animal protection, and lives with the caution of someone who has survived more than she lets on. Her estimated net worth of about $22 million stands as the tangible trace of a career that brought joy to millions but demanded more from her than most viewers ever knew. Brian Dietzen as Jimmy Palmer. Brian Dietzen played Jimmy Palmer, the earnest, slightly awkward assistant medical examiner in NCIS 2004, when he was 26 years old. His character brought warmth and unexpected courage to the lab, turning quiet moments into the heart of the team. And the journey that shaped the man behind that gentle persona began long before viewers ever met Palmer. Born on November 14, 1977, he spent his early years in Colorado, where school plays became the only place he felt completely certain of himself. While other children outgrew their brief moments on stage, he chased those moments with an intensity that surprised even his teachers. Acting led him through high school, then through the University of Colorado's prestigious theater program. Those formative years pushed him toward opportunities that weren't glamorous but taught him discipline. Shakespeare festivals, small productions, and brief moments in projects like From Justin to Kelly. His world changed again when health began to quietly slip beneath him. A sudden stroke in 2020, triggered by a clotting disorder he had never known he carried, forced him into surgery and months of recovery. The experience reshaped everything, yet he returned to NCIS with a steadier voice and deeper presence. In 2025, Brian Dietzen is 47 years old, still portraying Palmer and contributing as a writer behind the scenes. Life at home remains centered around his wife, Kelly Scobie, and their 2 children, while long-term medication keeps his blood condition under control. His estimated net worth of about $3 million reflects years of steady work rather than sudden fame. Ralph Waite as Jackson Gibbs. Ralph Waite played Jackson Gibbs, the stern but compassionate father of Leroy Jethro Gibbs in NCIS 2008. When he was 80 years old. His presence added history and quiet sorrow to the Gibbs family, offering rare glimpses into the man Gibbs became. Born on June 22, 1928 in White Plains, New York, he was the eldest of 5 children in a working family that valued discipline and duty. His early path led him through the Marine Corps, then to Bucknell University, and eventually to Yale Divinity School. Theater became his first lasting home, giving structure to grief that had followed him since losing a daughter to leukemia when she was only 9. That tragedy changed him, and its shadow followed him into his acting life. His breakthrough role as John Walton Sr. in The Waltons brought acclaim and an Emmy nomination. Yet the pressure of fame collided with a growing dependence on alcohol. The addiction cost him work, stability, and the marriages he tried desperately to hold on to. Years later, recurring health issues, especially those tied to liver damage, even as he continued to appear in films like The Bodyguard and returned to television through roles in Bones and NCIS. Sadly, Ralph Waite died on February 13, 2014, at the age of 85, passing from natural causes in Palm Desert, California. He was laid to rest in White Plains Rural Cemetery, not far from where his life began. At the time of his death, he left an estate of roughly $2 million and a body of work defined as much by honesty and vulnerability as by talent. Rocky Carroll as Leon Vance. Rocky Carroll played Leon Vance, the sharp-eyed, uncompromising NCIS director, when he joined NCIS in 2008 at 44 years old. His character carried authority with a quiet weight, shaping the team's future through choices that were often colder than he wished. That sense of discipline came from a life built slowly in his real life. Born Roscoe Fulton Carroll on July 8, 1963, in Cincinnati, Ohio, his earliest years were shaped inside the halls of the School for Creative and Performing Arts. The stage offered direction he rarely found elsewhere, pushing him toward Webster University and the Conservatory of Theater Arts, where technique, pressure, and ambition lived side by side. Those foundations carried him into New York, even as he quietly navigated the racial barriers that followed him into auditions, contracts, and early television work. His rise continued through roles in Rock and Chicago Hope, anchored by a celebrated Tony Award nomination for The Piano Lesson, though behind that success lived a constant awareness that every opportunity came with added scrutiny. Hollywood rarely softened toward black actors of his generation, leaving him to shoulder resilience as a daily ritual rather than a philosophy. Years later, that same endurance became essential when NCIS filming schedules kept him far from home, straining his marriage and testing the balance he fought hard to maintain. Today, Rocky Carroll is 62 years old, still portraying Vance while directing multiple NCIS episodes and continuing to work steadily in television. His life with his wife Gabrielle Bullock and their daughter reflects a stability earned through decades of discipline. With an estimated net worth of about $4 million, he stands as one of the series' quiet pillars, an actor whose journey mirrors the perseverance of the character he plays. Michael Weatherly as Anthony Tony Dinozzo. Michael Weatherly played Anthony Tony Dinozzo, the charming, rule-bending senior field agent of NCIS 2003, when he was 35 years old, slipping into the role with an ease that made the character unforgettable. His humor masked wounds, secrets, and loyalties, mirroring a life that carried far more turbulence than fans ever imagined. Born on July 8, 1968, in New York City and raised in Fairfield, Connecticut, this place existed opportunities but weighed expectations heavily to him. He moved through elite schools, Fairfield Country Day, Brooks School, and several universities. Yet none held him long, and one by one he left them behind in favor of acting. That decision severed him from the stable path his family envisioned and set him on a course defined by financial struggle, small roles. The breaks eventually came: soap operas, brief sitcoms, then the role of Logan Cale in Dark Angel, which earned industry recognition and introduced him to the scrutiny that follows fame. But success met controversy head-on when accusations of misconduct on the set of Bull erupted in 2018, leading to public backlash, a multi-million-dollar settlement by the network, and the collapse of personal stability he had built with difficulty. His marriage to Bojana Jankovic endured the storm, though not without strain, but it helped he continue writing, directing, and pushing forward in the only profession that ever felt like home. In 2025, Michael Weatherly is 57 years old, returning once again to the role of Dinozzo for the new series NCIS, Tony and Ziva. His life is centered around his wife, Bojana, and their children, while years of steady work have built an estimated net worth of roughly $45 million. His story remains marked by both triumph and controversy. Cote de Pablo as Ziva David. Cote de Pablo played Ziva David, the fierce, haunted Mossad officer who reshaped NCIS forever, when she joined the series in 2005 at 26 years old. Her character carried danger, grief, and devotion in equal measure, becoming one of television's most unforgettable agents. That intensity was rooted in a life story that moved across continents long before she ever stepped onto the NCIS set. Her full name is Maria José de Pablo Fernández, born November 12, 1979, in Santiago, Chile, where family, culture, and language were constants until a sudden move to Miami at age 10 changed everything. The shift left her juggling homesickness with a new identity, a new language, and a new name, Cote, chosen simply because her classmates couldn't pronounce Maria José. The arts became her anchor. Arvida Middle School, New World School of the Arts, and later Carnegie Mellon. She poured herself into acting, music, and theater productions that demanded more of her than anything she had known before. Those early struggles steered her toward a career built on perseverance. After graduating in 2000, she survived New York by working in restaurants and babysitting between auditions, eventually landing small roles on The Treat, All My Children, and The Jury. The path was uneven, and the near collapse of the Mambo Kings musical left her unemployed overnight, only for NCIS to call 2 days later. The years that followed brought acclaim, awards, and the pressure of playing a character who carried deep emotional weight. When contract negotiations in 2013 turned sour, she walked away, exhausted by creative disagreements and the growing strain of a storyline she no longer believed in. Now, Cote de Pablo is 45 years old, newly a mother, and preparing for her on-screen return in NCIS, Tony and Ziva. She remains private, focused on family, selective with roles, and still admired by viewers who never accepted Ziva's absence. Her estimated net worth of $6 million reflects years of careful choices rather than constant visibility. Sasha Alexander as Caitlin Kate Todd. Sasha Alexander played Caitlin Kate Todd, the disciplined, sharp-witted agent whose death stunned NCIS fans, when she joined the show in 2003 at 30 years old. Her presence brought elegance and restraint to the team, and her sudden exit in Season 2 became one of the series' most defining shocks. The road that led her to that moment was filled with ambition, struggle pushed further than most viewers ever imagined. Her full name is Zuzana Drobnjakovic, born May 17, 1973, in Los Angeles to a Serbian family. Acting found her early through school productions, but her first dream, figure skating, collapsed after a knee injury forced her away from the sport she loved. Performance became her refuge again, carrying her through high school, into USC's School of Cinema Television, and then across the country to New York. Later, she embraced the grind of summer stock and Shakespeare festivals to sharpen her craft. Those early challenges built the discipline that launched her into television roles on Presidio Med, Wasteland, and eventually Dawson's Creek, where she gained national attention. But NCIS demanded more than she could physically sustain. Long filming days, heavy action, and a workload that eventually pushed her to request release from her contract. Leaving the show was painful, yet it opened the door to a new era. She rebuilt her life through acclaimed work on Rizzoli and Isles, directing, voice acting, and recurring roles on Shameless, proving she had far more range than the public had seen in Kate Todd. In 2025, Sasha Alexander is 52 years old, balancing acting, directing, and family life with her husband Eduardo Ponti and their 2 children. Her estimated net worth of around $6 million reflects a career defined not by one role, but by the resilience and reinvention that followed. Emily Wickersham as Eleanor Ellie Bishop. Emily Wickersham played Eleanor Ellie Bishop, the analytical, quietly sharp agent who reshaped NCIS after Ziva's departure, when she joined the series in 2013 at 29 years old. Her character carried curiosity, discipline, and vulnerability beneath her calm exterior. And the story behind the actress who brought Bishop to life began long before she entered the bullpen. Her full name is Emily Kaiser Wickersham, born April 26, 1984, in Kansas, before her family settled in Mamaroneck, New York, where she moved through childhood with far more uncertainty than she ever let on. College offered no real answers, and after 2 years at Muhlenberg, she walked away, chasing a feeling she couldn't explain. New York auditions gave her small breakthroughs, brief appearances in The Sopranos and Gone, but each came with the weight when she had taken too big a risk by abandoning a stable life for an unpredictable career. The struggle paid off when NCIS cast her as Bishop. Yet life off-screen carried its own storms. Her marriage to musician Blake Hanley collapsed in 2018, leaving her to rebuild through work, friendships, and eventually a new relationship with actor James Badge Dale. Motherhood in 2021 grounded her in ways she hadn't expected, even as NCIS's demanding schedule slowly pushed her toward the decision to step away after season 18. Now, Emily Wickersham is 41 years old, raising 2 young children with Dale while choosing projects slowly and with intention. She stays largely outside the spotlight, protective of the quiet life she fought hard to earn. Her estimated net worth of about $2 million reflects a career built on steady work rather than constant visibility. Lauren Holly as Jenny Shepard. Lauren Holly played Jenny Shepard, the elegant, guarded NCIS director with a past that shadowed every decision she made, when she joined the series in 2005 at 41 years old. Her portrayal of power mixed with unresolved pain added a new emotional dimension to the show. The roots of that performance stretch back through a life marked by ambition, loss, and reinvention. Her full name is Lauren Michael Holly, born October 28, 1963, in Bristol, Pennsylvania, into a family surrounded by academia and the arts. Childhood brought both encouragement and tragedy. The intellectual world she grew up in gave her structure, but the death of her younger brother Alexander left a wound that shaped her for years. Acting offered direction, leading her from Sarah Lawrence College into early television roles. Those steps pushed her into breakout success on picket fences, then global recognition through films like Dumb and Dumber and Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. But even as her career climbed, her personal life fractured under the pressure. 3 marriages, each ending under the strain of schedules, constant travel, and the emotional weight of public life. By the time NCIS arrived, she carried enough real grief and resilience to give Jenny Shepherd her unmistakable depth. Leaving the series after season 5 allowed her to rebuild professionally, leading to acclaimed work on Motive, Designated Survivor, and a steady return to character-driven storytelling. Today, Lauren Holly is 61 years old, living in Oakville, Ontario, raising her 3 sons while continuing to act in select projects. Her estimated $14 million net worth reflects decades of film, television, and international work, but the life she now leads is quieter than the fame that once surrounded her. Maria Bello as Jacqueline Jack Sloan. Maria Bello played Jacqueline Jack Sloan when she joined NCIS in 2017 at 50 years old, stepping into the role of the team's sharp, intuitive forensic psychologist. Her character arrived with quiet strength, carrying secrets that made her presence both steadying and haunting. And the woman behind that role had lived a life shaped by battles every bit as dramatic. Maria Elena Bello was born on April 18, 1967, in Norristown, Pennsylvania, to a Polish-American mother and an Italian-American father, whose lives were defined by long workdays and constant sacrifice. Those early years in a working-class Catholic household left her determined to escape expectation while still carrying its weight. She studied political science at Villanova University, but when she stepped onto a New York stage after graduation, she realized she had finally found the world where her voice belonged. Her early breakthroughs in Permanent Midnight, ER, and Coyote Ugly came only after years of uncertainty, auditions that went nowhere, and self-doubt. Momentum finally arrived with The Cooler and A History of Violence, the films that earned her Golden Globe nominations and proved she could hold a story's darkest emotional core. But personal life brought its own trials. The end of her relationship with Claire Munn, the difficulty of defining her identity publicly, and the strain of navigating motherhood while building a career filled with demanding roles. Every character she played carried a piece of those battles, none more than Sloan. Today, Maria Bello is 58 years old, working as both an actress and producer, most recently celebrated for her acclaimed work on Beef and her producing role in The Woman King. Her marriage to chef Dominique Crenn ended in 2025, a quiet heartbreak she has chosen not to elaborate on. With an estimated net worth of about $12 million, she continues shaping stories from both sides of the camera, turning every scar into something meaningful. Wilmer Valderrama as Nicholas Nick Torres. Wilmer Valderrama played Nicholas Nick Torres when he joined NCIS in 2016 at 36 years old, embodying a volatile, deeply wounded undercover agent who carried danger like a shadow. His arrival shook the team's rhythm and revealed the emotional fractures beneath the badge. To understand why the role fit him so naturally is to follow a life marked by upheaval, ambition, and reinvention. Born on January 30th, 1980, in Miami, Florida, his parents moved the family back and forth across continents in search of stability. Those constant relocations, Miami to Venezuela, then back to the United States at 13, taught him early that survival meant adapting quickly. He found refuge in school theater, the first space where language barriers and cultural shifts finally stopped chasing him. That foundation led him toward the role that made him famous, Fez in That 70s Show, a breakout success that brought laughter, scrutiny, and a level of sudden fame he had not been prepared for. The years that followed were intense: Party Monster, Handy Manny, From Dusk Till Dawn, and high-profile relationships that drew headlines he never wanted. Behind the scenes, he poured energy into activism with the USO, Voto Latino, and Harness, trying to ground himself in causes larger than celebrity. Torres became another turning point, a character whose anger, trauma, and guarded heart let Valderrama channel pieces of fear and displacement he rarely spoke about. Now, Wilmer Valderrama is 45 years old, still portraying Torres while balancing a growing family that now includes 2 children. His career extends into producing, voice acting, and the long-planned Zorro project, all supported by an estimated $20 million net worth. Their journeys were unexpected, heartbreaking, and unforgettable. But their impact on NCIS will always remain. Which story surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden truths behind your favorite shows.